Hello everyone, welcome back to Jikook Diaries channel. It started as a regular day routine schedules, rehearsals, and the usual health checkup that every BTS member had gone through countless times. But no one expected that this particular visit would send a wave of anxiety crashing through the entire team. Jungkook, known for his boundless energy and seemingly invincible stamina, suddenly went quiet. The room that had been filled with laughter a few moments earlier became tense, as doctors exchanged subtle looks and Jimin's smile began to fade. The youngest member had always been the embodiment of strength to his youngs. Whether he was dancing with tireless passion, singing with raw emotion, or comforting others with his steady presence, Jungkook rarely showed weakness. That's why the slight concern on the doctor's face didn't go unnoticed by Jimin, whose eyes were locked onto Jungkook the entire time. Jimin has always been sensitive to Jungkook's state, sometimes even more than Jungkook is to himself, and as the checkup stretched longer than expected, and Jungkook was asked to do a few additional scans, a silent panic started building in Jimin's chest. He tried to keep his composure, but his heart pounded louder with every passing minute. When Jungkook finally returned, the smile he wore looked forced. His words were soft. "It's nothing serious," he said, "just fatigue." But Jimin knew better. He saw the way Jungkook avoided eye contact, the way he pressed his lips together to stop them from trembling. Later, away from the cameras and the rest of the team, Jungkook finally let the truth slip. The doctor had found signs of extreme exhaustion, enough to warrant concern for his immune system and heart rhythm. Though not life-threatening, it was enough to require rest, and possibly changes to his intense routine. Jungkook had pushed his body too hard again. He had been ignoring the signs, prioritizing performances and army over himself. That was the moment Jimin broke. He didn't speak for a few seconds. He just stared at Jungkook, his eyes already filled with tears that clung to his lashes like tiny raindrops refusing to fall. "Why didn't you tell me?" Jimin whispered, his voice shaking. "Why do you always carry things like this alone?" Jungkook reached for his hand, trying to reassure him, but Jimin couldn't hold back anymore. The tears fell softly at first, then in quiet sobs as he leaned into Jungkook's shoulder. "You always look after everyone, Kook. Let someone take care of you, too." That night, the dorm was quiet. Jimin stayed beside Jungkook, gently placing his hand on his chest, as if to make sure his heart was still beating strong and steady. The two didn't say much, but the silence between them was filled with emotion, fear, love, and above all, the unspoken promise that they would always be each other's safe space. The health scare, though not devastating, was a wake-up call. For Jungkook, it was a reminder that even the strongest need rest. And for Jimin, it was another moment etched deeply into his heart, a reminder of how fragile the ones we love can be, and how important it is to tell them, again and again, "You're not alone." The next morning, Jungkook was met with Jimin's determined gaze. "From now on," he said firmly, "we take care of you together." Jungkook smiled, the genuine kind that reached his eyes this time, because in that moment, he knew. No matter what came their way, Jimin would always be there, crying if he must, protecting if he can, and loving without end. So next time you see Jungkook smiling on stage, remember the quiet nights he endured. Remember the silent tears Jimin shed when he thought no one was watching. And remember that sometimes, the greatest love isn't shouted. It's whispered, between two people, in the stillness of the night. As days passed after that fateful checkup, something subtle but unshakable had changed between Jungkook and Jimin. It wasn't that they grew distant, far from it. If anything, they seemed to orbit each other more closely. Jungkook became slightly more careful, a little more aware of his own limits. And Jimin? He became a quiet guardian, always watching, always near, as if proximity could shield Jungkook from every fatigue, every strain, every silent ache he never voiced. There were moments the fans never saw, like that one morning during rehearsal, when Jungkook showed up with a slight wince, his movements just a little slower. The staff might have missed it. Even the other members, caught up in choreography, didn't notice. But Jimin did, always did. He crossed the floor in seconds, placing a water bottle in Jungkook's hand and whispering something only the two of them could hear. Jungkook didn't respond with words. He just smiled, tired, but grateful. That kind of smile that speaks louder than any script. Fans later noticed a new trend in their content. In-run BTS, in V-Lives, and behind-the-scenes clips, Jimin would often casually check in with Jungkook, even mid-laughter. "You okay? You slept? Did you eat?" It became a running inside joke to some, but those who knew. These weren't just words. They were lifelines, gently thrown by someone who cared too deeply to let them be ignored. And Jungkook started responding more openly, more honestly. No longer brushing off exhaustion with a laugh, but instead, saying things like, "Yeah, I rested," or "Hyung reminded me to take vitamins." Their connection, always intense, became quieter, deeper rooted in shared experiences and silent understandings. Then came the anniversary concert, a massive, emotionally charged event that marked not only their journey as a group but their resilience as individuals. Fans remember how during the final speech, Jungkook's voice cracked, not from vocal strain but emotion. He looked overwhelmed, memories, pressure, and gratitude all bubbling to the surface. As he struggled to speak, Jimin stepped closer, not interrupting, just standing there, slightly behind him, a steady presence. Jungkook turned, their eyes met, and whatever he saw in Jimin gave him the strength to finish his words. Later, in the dressing room, Jungkook was seen hugging Jimin tightly, whispering something into his ear. Jimin's face softened, his fingers clutching the back of Jungkook's shirt as if grounding him. A staff member recalled that moment and said, "It was like watching someone breathe after nearly drowning." Jikook isn't about labels. It's about those glances when the world isn't watching. About the trembling hand that finds another in the dark. About whispered words when no camera's rolling about, "Are you okay?" And, "I'm here." Jungkook's health scare wasn't a headline, it was a reminder that behind the idol, there's a boy with limits. And behind that boy, there's Jimin, soft but fierce, afraid but brave, gentle but unwavering. To this day, fans can't forget that one encore stage where Jungkook, mid-song, turned toward Jimin with eyes full of emotion, mouthing something inaudible. Jimin nodded, tears glistening in his eyes. They didn't need to speak aloud. We understood. So if you ever doubt the depth of their bond, remember this. When Jungkook's strength faltered, it wasn't the spotlight or the applause that held him up. It was Jimin, quiet, tearful, determined Jimin, who cried not because he was weak, but because love made him brave enough to care that deeply. And Jungkook, he let himself be held, which may have been the bravest thing he's ever done. Because sometimes love doesn't shout. It shows up in the early morning check-ins, the silent support, the steady hand on your back when the world spins too fast. Jikook is not just a moment. It's a journey, one of growing, hurting, healing, and holding on. Thank you for joining us on this deeply emotional chapter of Jikook Diaries. If their story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and share. Because these aren't just idle tales, they're human ones. Of heartbeats shared, of tears caught, of love, quiet and fierce. And always remember, between the lines, behind the scenes, real love whispers. And sometimes that whisper sounds a lot like, "Jimina, thank you." See you next time on Jikook Diaries, where love always finds its way into the light. Purple Heart.